Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me in the locker room on this Friday, February 25th. I'm Alan Locher. You may recognize my guest today, Anthony Sully Sullivan, as the OxiClean Guy. Sully is here today to tell us about the detour he took to his career when his daughter was diagnosed with a rare genetic disorder and he needed an alternative to the prescription medication, which robbed her of her personality. This desperate dad entered a unique second act as the owner of a hemp farm, born out of his want and need to find alternative drugs for his young daughter. Montkush is based on 116 acres in Vermont, where Sully spent 2 years living in an airstream on top of a mountain in freezing conditions. He has learned how to farm CBD and CBDA, the non-intoxicating chemical in the cannabis plant. Montkush has received both USDA organic certification and Vermont's organic certification. Sully began administering CBD for his daughter's symptoms, and her seizures were then under control. Her weight and her personality came back. It is my pleasure to welcome to the locker room, Anthony Sully Sullivan.
Happy Friday to you too.
How you doing? How's Devin doing, first of all?
She's doing well. You think of Devin the place or Devin the person? Devin the place,
Devin,
where I was born, it's been under a siege from bad weather. They've had like 120 mile an hour winds. My mom has been keeping me up to speed, but I'm actually headed back to England to see her for her birthday on Monday. But Devin the person, my daughter, she's doing great. She's 11 years old. She's at a new school down in Lakewood Ranch, which is near Sarasota. She lives here in Florida, and she's doing great. Thank you for asking. I'm extremely grateful to have a healthy daughter, and I'm a proud dad. So thanks for asking.
I bet. I realized because I knew we were doing the show, in essence about your daughter, and I had asked Andrea, your publicist, about her name, Devin, but I didn't realize it's where you're from in England, right?
Yep, Devon, spelled with an O. So I was born in Devon in England, and I absolutely loved it. So I decided to name my daughter after the place that I was born. So if you ever get a chance to go there, it's worth it.
Yeah, I've never been, and I do love England, so absolutely. Well, take us back, Sully. How old was Devin when she was diagnosed with this disorder, and can you tell us about it?
Yeah, so she was born with a duplication of chromosome 1 and 13. It will not fix itself. It's a rare genetic disorder. It's you could say, when people are born with Down syndrome, or if you're born with autism, it's something you have to learn to adapt. It's part of your life. It's part of your genetic makeup. So Devin's condition doesn't have a name. It's quite a long number, and for some reason, even though I have a pretty good memory, I've never actually been able to remember the number because I think there's a little bit of trauma associated with the whole thing. So when she was born, they set the bar pretty low, and as a first-time dad, it was pretty scary. I think any mom or dad or anyone we can wish for is a healthy kid, right? So we were very worried that how Devin's condition was going to develop and manifest, and take, present itself in her life. The good news is she's doing great. She has special needs. She doesn't talk like you and I are having a conversation right now. She goes to a school with a whole bunch of kids who have various IDD conditions, and she's really social. She's had a lot of surgeries in her life. She has a lot of difficulty in life doing a lot of things that are very easy for you and I. But the good news is, in the silver lining, is she's a great kid. She's happy. She wakes up in the morning. She has her little routines. And she has an army of people, including myself, that help her. She's actually very aware of, she's watched our TV show. She's seen our website, and she's always I think if I could talk to her, she's very excited to be part of Montkush and be the true north, and you will, of the inspiration of what Montkush is. So she's doing great. She was diagnosed with she had a heart surgery when she was 4, which was a little scary, touch and go, but the seizures that presented themselves when she was 7 is really what motivated me to take on this journey. And right. She, with the side effects of the medication she was on, were really hard on her. This is a kid who already is dealing with a lot, and it included, she lost 20% of her body weight. She was put in had a bed made in a classroom because she couldn't stay awake, and the worst thing was her personality literally vanished. So me and her mom decided to go down a plant-based wellness, a kind of an alternative.
Right.
That's what on the journey.
Yeah, I'll definitely get there. Was she diagnosed with the disorder really at birth? Is that when she was diagnosed?
Yeah, it was actually quite difficult. It's quite a difficult thing to. I remember when I got the news from the geneticist, and literally the geneticist, I was in the NICU, which is not a very nice place to be. If you've ever been in the NICU, you want to get out of there with all the children as soon as possible. And my daughter was in the NICU, and the geneticist looked at me, looked at my kid, looked at me, and basically said, "Your daughter looks funny." And nobody wants to hear that, right? And I knew right away when she was born that something was up. I just knew it. I don't know how I knew it. I just was like, something. My little girl, she looked at me and I could see her screaming for help. Anyway, so yeah, we knew very early on in her life. And the scary part was, as a first time father, was, you don't know what to do. There's no instruction manual for us to. So yeah, we knew very early on, but we were sort of left to ourselves to figure it out. And I think even kids with Down syndrome or with autism, when you have an infant, it's an infant, it pretty much needs help, period, right? I mean, they're not going to. So
right, yeah.
But now, so it's worrying, and you're holding your little 6-pound baby, and you're like, oh, your kid already has special needs because you got to take care of that. But it adds a whole complexity and a whole series of issues that, luckily, we have a really supportive family. We have really, really good friends. We've found great doctors and therapists, and we've done a lot of work. So it's been very rewarding, if I could say that. In the beginning, you sort of frame it, oh no, why me? Why us? Why did this happen to me? And then as time goes on, you just see these things that happen that my daughter's been able to achieve. And I'm actually grateful, very, very grateful to be in the position I'm in. So it's been a very rewarding experience and continues to be.
And talk about some of the medication, if you know what it was that sort of robbed her.
You know what? I don't really like to name the medication. Have, because I feel that especially with anti-seizure medication and mental health, that everyone seems to have, from what I see, and I can only talk to my own experience, everyone seems to have different, how a medication affects you is different to how it affects me.
Right.
What I don't want to do is have people go, oh no, I'm on my daughter's on this medication, I'm not going to try it. My daughter had a very, very severe reaction. It was known to us. It wasn't like, hey, this was a surprise. It was like, right, here's the medication, here's the side effects. Here's what could happen. And sure enough, the side effects that you don't want, they presented themselves. And, I was left with holding my kid on a river in St. Petersburg, in Clearwater. And I was on a kayak trip. And over a period of time, it didn't happen overnight. It was like death by 1,000. Don't worry, I say death by 1,000 cuts, but it happened over a period of time. I just watched the erosion of ultimately my daughter's personality, and that's how I would, and I still do. I can tell what my daughter wants by the way she uses word assimilations, and I think had she been able to talk like the way you and I are, she probably would have said, "Hey, Daddy, I don't like the way this medicine makes me feel," but she couldn't say that. So we had to figure that out, and then we were like, right, okay, what do we do about it, and how do we do it, and get the right professional help. So. It's not uncommon, I think, for people to have allergic reactions or side effects. And we didn't just take this into our own hands. We consulted with neurologists. We read a lot. Of course, you go on the internet, you go down any rabbit hole, right? So, and luckily, her mom is a PhD in as practicing clinical psychologist. So I had a very, very bright person help with this. So, and I would say to anyone watching this, whatever you're on from a medication standpoint, work with your physician, work with specialists, read and get the information that you need that's going to work best for you on an individual basis.
Absolutely. And you're so right about medication. I mean, it's almost anything. We have different reactions to food, to drinking alcohol, all of that stuff. We all have different makeups. Where did the idea, for researching CBD and CBDA and the idea to go live on a mountaintop, how to, and I'm sure part of that, you said it, was research. I mean, what parent isn't going to do as much research as possible to find an alternative that would help their child?
Well, we read about the effects of CBD, and it was right around 2018 when the Farm Bill was passed. And I didn't know much about CBD, and I didn't know, I knew enough about marijuana to know that if, you smoke it or take an edible, you generally speaking will get high. It was used, it was being used it was quite talked about in the cancer community, where it was helping with nausea and some as a help with people's diet. And there was a lot of talk, around in the wellness community that, hey, cannabis can be used not just for recreational use, but there's a medicinal component to it too. And then the CBD was basically getting a lot of benefits from the cannabis plant without the psychoactive component. And I initially was not down with the idea, because I initially did what I think a lot of people do, is go, I don't want my 7-year-old to be high. And then I quickly flipped on it. I slept on it overnight, and I thought, you know what? It's, even if it involves, I got to be completely candid. I was like, even if it involves her being high, it's better than the medication she was on. So I did a little research, more research into CBD, and I learned, okay, we might be able to get the benefits of the cannabis plant without getting high, which is great for a 7-year-old. And there was a lot of talk about it helping with seizures. There was another brand that had this whole story. Charlotte from Charlotte's Web actually there was a lot of talk about that, and I thought, well, this is, let's do some research. So we tried it, we had some success, and I wanted to know more about it. And I found myself, I'm one to, I don't really do anything by half, sometimes to my own
detriment.
I found myself up in a hemp farm up in Vermont in 2018 and the fall of 2018, and I had nothing more than I could say is an epiphany when I was standing in this hemp farm, and I thought, you know what? Here I'm looking at a sea of mature hemp plants in the fall, Labor Day actually, of 2018, and I thought to myself, you know what? Let's have a crack at this. Let's see if we can. I've had a very great life, and I've enjoyed myself in my as seen on TV career. I'm still very actively involved in OxiClean, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to buy a piece of land, and I'm going to buy some seeds, and I'm going to start farming, and I'm going to make the best CBD that I possibly can with the help of some friends. And it was probably the craziest decision that I've ever made outside of deciding to pick up everything and move to America when I was 21. And there's that old saying that no magic happens outside of the comfort zone, right? And I thought, okay, I'm going to get way outside of my comfort zone. And it was a bit of a romantic idea at first, but I had the true north, and the reason, the why was to help my kid. I'm like, this is not a good reason. This is a great reason. So, and I don't think most guys, maybe most people, like, I fantasized about farming. And, the reality is farming is extremely difficult. It's very hard. And it hasn't got, I think, even with mechanization and everything, you're still up against Mother Nature. You're still battling drought. You're still battling floods, mud, water, pests, wind, dust, dirt, not the right nutrients, all those things. Nothing's changed. There's some more technology to help with it, but we went at it from a very, very rookie perspective, maybe a little bit, I call it cockeyed optimism. We'll figure it out. It was kind of my we'll figure it out. And we did, with the help of a lot of locals. The people of Vermont have been fantastic. We bought a piece of land, and I was back and forth a lot because I was obviously still doing a lot with OxiClean and still am. So we bought a piece of land with no structures on it. And we decided that, I will give you the full story. We were operating out of a couple of old RVs. And
is this the piece of land?
Yeah, we were operating out of a couple of old RVs, and I don't know if you watch Breaking Bad, but it looked a little Breaking Bad-ish. I said, let's buy an Airstream. It's like at least an Airstream is got some cachet, and they look good. So we had a whole Airstream, and that we operated out of that Airstream with you know, it wasn't just me, obviously. We had a lot of help, big team of people, and we got on the USDA organic certification, and we have an end finished product right now that I'm really, really proud of. And it's 2022. I mean, I started this project over 3 years ago, and it seems like yesterday. But we successfully grew over 2 years. We've grown over 150,000 high CBD hemp plants. We got a USDA. We continue to have a USDA organic certification for our process and our farm. And we have what I consider to be the best CBD and CBDA available on our website, montkush.com. We're also in a couple of retailers. And, you know, the true north on this project, like I said, was to help my daughter. And the journey has taken so many twists and turns. There she is. That's my little girl, Devin, that's sitting on the bucket of our John Deere 5165 with a dark Sponto.
I love that.
It's, you know what? When I see this picture, my little girl was just so happy when she went up on the farm and she could see all the guys up there working away, and we're growing these hemp plants, and we found a very way to extract the oil, the hemp oil, using a press, and we have a rosin-based finished product, which is really, really top shelf. So I've learned a lot. And when I went into this, I wasn't quite sure which way the road was going to go. I just knew we were gonna do it. We were gonna pull it off, and we were gonna make the best product possible for my kid and hundreds of people like her, well, thousands of people like her.
When did you first give her the CBD? And
the first time I gave it to her, actually, it was in the fall, probably September of 2019. The plants obviously took about 3 or 4 months to grow, and then we extracted some of our rosin oil by using a press. And it wasn't the press that we bought, actually. It was a much, much smaller press. And we sat down and we mixed it in some fractionated coconut oil, and all of a sudden we had it. And this sounds crazy. I'm used to manufacturing things that are very, very complex and require CAD drawings. You got to import them from another country, and there's tariffs. And we had our rosin that we squeezed from the flower, and I took it first, and I remember that, and I FaceTimed my little one, and I jumped on the plane and I took it down to her. I can't remember the exact day, but I remember going into the bedroom, and I had the little glass bottle, and it was a written label on it, and it was for Devin, bottle number 1. And I took the little vial and I squeezed it, and I have a great video, not of that moment, but and she opened her little mouth, and we just put it underneath her tongue, and she calls it her medicine. And yeah, it's a great moment, you know. It was a really special day. And she's no longer on any anti-seizure medication, which is great. And I've noticed that in itself is a major win. But, you know, her anxiety level and her sleep and her general, my little one gets very, she precipitates. So she can almost get stuck sometimes on one particular thing. And I found that we've had really, really great results with our CBD. So it's a really special journey, this one.
I bet. What have you learned about sort of all of the medicinal possibilities with hemp?
I think it's the chapter is not written yet. I think that there's the FDA has approved one hemp-based product for use for anti-seizure medication. I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but I do think that there's big pharmaceutical companies are not, you know, I don't think they're running down the hemp road, because obviously there's a lot of money in big pharma. So I think that this is a plant-based medicine. A friend of mine calls it nature's medicine cabinet. We get one of the most rewarding things that's happened to me and the company is that as we sell our product on our website, montkush.com, we encourage and solicit reviews. And we're like, please leave a review. Even if it's a bad review, we want to know. And I mean, it's amazing what people write. And I have to be very careful here. I got to stay within guardrails, and I don't want to be one of those guys that say I'm going to, cure all this. But we get the number one reason people buy Montkush is actually for pain management. And we get, and I, please go to the website and check it out. And I actually, as someone who farmed it and squeezed it and uses it for my daughter, I always felt that, anxiety and stress and relaxation and sleep was the main reason. But more and more people are saying they use it to help manage their pain. And it's different on a case-by-case basis. So, this is a plant that isn't really that well studied. And for all of the noise around it and all of the people that are in it, it's still relatively little known about it. And I love it when there are studies that are published. In fact, recently, Oregon State University published an article in January that linked CBDA to COVID. Now, I want to, again, be careful about what I say here, because I don't want anyone, Sully said if you take our product, it'll cure COVID. That's not what I'm saying. But we had a tremendous amount of traffic come to our site because Oregon State University did some research, and you can look up if you type in Oregon State University CBDA, you'll find the article. And it's great to see, respected educational institutions doing research and linking hemp and cannabis, not just hemp, but in particular hemp for us, cannabis, to help with ailments. And, I'm all about nature's medicine cabinet if it can be done. And look, we're not the first people to do this. I mean, you can look at something like eucalyptus oil, has been used for medicinal benefits for, there's so many natural remedies and some of them, I think, people say turmeric is great for inflammation. Other people want to take ibuprofen, but why not have the option? I think it's great to say, I'm going to, by all means, go to the pharmacy and
I do both, the ibuprofen and the turmeric.
Right.
But I recall, because I'm a fan of Olivia Newton-John, and she has had breast cancer for many, many years and has trouble, I believe, walking. And I believe her husband provides her with CBD as well for that pain management that you said. And I might reach out to you offline for a family member who's going through some cancer at the moment to ask questions. But
absolutely, I will send you a link after this, Alan. Just let me know, and I'd like to put a code together for your customers or for your viewers and listeners.
Oh, great! I'll put that up on the YouTube link. I will
absolutely.
Put that up.
I'll get you a code that can be
Great.
done. We'll use your name of your show, Locher. All right. So
Right.
Don't put it in right now because it won't be there. But after the show, I'll put a code in. But it is great to hear stories like that. In fact, one of my friends, and actually someone who's worked on the farm with us, Ethan Zahn, is friendly with Olivia Newton-John. And
I was going to ask about, how did you hook up with Ethan for this?
I've known Ethan for about 25 years. We did the Eco Challenge in Fiji together, and he's an inventor. He's a mad inventor, and he's always got an idea, and he's actually doing very well with his Crunch Ball right now. But on a serious note,
and he's a cancer survivor.
Ethan got a really nasty battle with cancer, and I actually went to see him in hospital when he was, he was living in a bubble. And his immune system was taken down to a zero. And it's worth having a sit down with Ethan. He'll share his story. But he's
I remember hearing it, when he, I think, was first diagnosed, and he was on TV discussing it.
Yeah. So, it's no secret that Ethan's had a battle. I mean, he lost all his hair and his body weight was down to a zero. And so he turned to cannabis for multiple reasons, including his appetite was sideways. And I also think that he suffered, he was dealing with a lot of anxiety with his cancer. But it's great to be part of a movement, if you will, of in plant-based wellness, in particular hemp, and in particular the cannabis field, where people have gone to jail for it, and now it's coming out of the shadows, and the medicinal benefits are being known and used. And I think more research needs to be done. More research is being done. I dived into this full. One of the things I wanted to do in this, there's a lot of people have got into this business just because the time's right, or it's cool, or they want to make money. And you can look around and you'll see celebrities attach themselves to brands. I wanted to do this all the way. Firstly, I wanted to make a great product for my daughter and for others like her. But I also wanted to understand the process. I wanted to understand the plant. I wanted to know about it. And I'm very happy to have had the experience and continue to experience, taking those little tiny seeds that, you can get a whole meadow's worth of seeds in a soda can, a whole entire meadow, and planting those seeds by hand with a fingernail into the little trays, with the right soil. And then, taking them from the greenhouses after they're germinated and putting them in the fields and then watching them grow. And then, eventually 90 days, 120 days later, somewhere between there, taking them out of the ground and bucking and squeezing the flower out of them, and actually being able to sit here and have a conversation where I didn't just put my name on a bottle here. It's not something, I'll put my name on this and it'll be good. I can speak to it. I'm not an expert by any means, but I've lived it, and I'm very grateful for that.
Well, that's why I have a question, because you said earlier, when the idea sort of came up, you were like, no, I don't want to get my daughter high. Can you explain the difference between, the chemical that gets people high and the medicinal form of CBD?
So if you put a hemp plant, and not all of them are created equal, but we'll break it down in simple terms here, because it is a bit confusing. If you took a hemp plant and a cannabis plant and put them in the same room, you'd have a difficult time. The average person would have a hard time to tell the difference. The hemp plants that we grow, when they're ready to pick, for lack of a better word, they're about 6 feet tall, and they look like cannabis, they smell like cannabis. For all intents and purposes, they are the same. But what the key difference is, the plants that we grow are the THC, which is basically the psychoactive component that gets you high, is bred out of the genetics. This is done on a level that I don't understand. The seeds that we grow, that grow the hemp plant, the THC is bred out of them, and the federal legal limit is 0.3%, pretty much. Some states have a higher limit. So the plants that we grow are below 0.3% THC. They have a trace amount of THC, but it isn't enough to get you high. So you won't feel, if you've ever smoked weed or cannabis, you know what it feels like. And hopefully you've never smoked. When you smoke too much, you get too high. But what that does is, it means if people find good quality CBD, you're able to get the benefits of the plant without getting high. It's almost like alcohol-free beer. It's like beer without the alcohol in it, but there isn't much left in beer once you take the alcohol out of it, other than sugar. In a hemp plant, there are all types of cannabinoids that are in the plant: CBD, CBG, CBN. There's all these phytonutrients and minerals that are in the plant that, when taken as CBD, as good quality CBD, can work in concert, and you'll hear the phrase entourage effect thrown around. And the general, without getting too scientific, the body has an endocannabinoid system, and good quality CBD, and in our case CBDA, goes to work with each person's endocannabinoid system to help with certain conditions. The minute I start mentioning endocannabinoid systems, it gets a little complicated. But the bottom line is, the THC levels in our rosin oil are not high enough to get you high. So if anyone's listening or watching and saying, "Oh, I'm confused, I don't know," if you just look for the THC levels, they're below 0.3% THC. It's the THC that gets you high. And you may get trace amounts. In our CBD, there are trace amounts of THC, but it isn't enough to make you start to feel high, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yes, I have smoked weed before, so I'm not going to sit here. But it's I do like being lucid.
Yeah, it's much better to be lucid. Tell me about the King of Kush, the 10 episode that launched last year on A&E's Vice. How did that come about?
I'm good friends with a gentleman called Tom Beers, and Tom created the TV show that everyone knows and loves, and it's Deadliest Catch, and also Ice Road Truckers is just a couple of Tom's hits. We're good friends. And back in 2009, I had a TV show with my good friend Billy Mays, who's the OxiClean Guy that everyone knows. So I had a relationship with Tom, and when I started to when I embarked on the journey of Montkush, I thought to myself, I was with my partner Dave at the time, and I said, you know, this could make good television. This really could make good TV. I said, this couldn't, you know, what could possibly go wrong? You've got, you know, a guy with a friend of his and a bunch of other people. We know nothing about farming. We're going to, you know, buy a couple of tractors, get a greenhouse, buy 66,000 seeds. We won't do 1 acre. We'll do 60. And we'll film this with the idea that, you know, it'll be fun to watch. It'll be somewhat educational. You'll get to see a fish out of water, high stakes. I felt it had all the components of funny television. And also, you know, I wanted to capture the journey. I thought, you know, this is a moment in time. It's a moment in history. I think as we go through time, people maybe 10, 20 years go, what's the big deal with hemp or cannabis? Like, it'll be mainstream, but it isn't. It still isn't mainstream. You still can't walk into a well-known retailer and buy a brand of CBD that you know that. So it's still relatively new, and it's still a lot of unknowns. So I wanted to use the show as a educational vehicle. You know, cross between educational and entertainment. And I'm not going to lie, I wanted people to understand, you know, our story, our brand, and also, you know, share the story of my daughter and maybe inspire. You know, it's sometimes it can be a lonely battle when you have a kid with special needs. Sometimes you can feel like you're living in the shadows. When you don't get to do a lot of the things that people do with neurotypical kids, which is what people say, and I don't know who's neurotypical these days, but and to get out there and have some fun, and so we did the show. It aired on Vice, and it's up on Tubi right now. You can catch it on Tubi. Episode 1 is actually on YouTube. Just type in Kings of Kush.
That's great. I mean, it's so true because you know, people still have such a, you know, misconception about, you know, marijuana because, you know, up until last year, people still were being arrested on the streets, you know. I mean,
I mean, we have a big wave surfer, a guy called Andrew Cotton, who is, if you watch HBO's 100-Foot Wave, he's from my same village in Devon, and he's actually he's in our family, and he lives in Portugal. He serves in Nazaré, and I've sent 3 packages to Andrew, and they don't make it. Because they get impounded by customs in Portugal. So, and in England, I can't even sell it in the UK because it's still not legal there. So it's early days, and I can't wait for, you know, I think I'm a late arriver in terms of the business, but I think in terms of the life of this and the evolution of it, I think we're still in the early stages. Early days.
Absolutely, because anything that can possibly help, you know, medically, you know, without taking drugs that have adverse side effects. I mean, every commercial on television, you know, you take this drug and there's 100, you know, but you could get this. Yeah,
you could have nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, including death. I mean, they're out there.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I just, the irony of the society that we live in is, if you take you know, you look at the opioid epidemic, that it's still ongoing. It hasn't gone anywhere. It's out in the open now. But the fact that our federal FDA was okay with, for whatever reason, it doesn't, you know, I'm not pointing fingers here, and you know, doctors were handing out opiates like it was candy to people, you know, knowing that this is a highly addictive, yes, it's a pain medication, yes, it worked, and handing it out to people who, you know, for not their own fault, all of a sudden become addicted to these opioids, and then they can't get them, and then they end out living under a bridge in a cardboard box, homeless, you know, dying of a heroin overdose. It's very sad to see, and that's a regulated, you know. So you know, it's not, legislation is not always, you know, everything, you know, legislation doesn't always have a great outcome, and right. That's a proof of it. So, and I'm not saying that, you know, everyone should try this, but I do like the fact that we live in a country where we can at least start to have this conversation and go down this road. And it is, you know, I think the federal authority do a great job of kind of regulating what happens out there, but there are a lot of things I disagree with. I'm like, you know what, we could maybe throttle back on that, and maybe we could push this a little bit. But it's money and politics, And whenever you mix that up, you know, it gets
doesn't always end well.
No.
But you're so right about the opioid. But you know, the biggest thing is we should all be educated in the sense of whether it is a, you know, prescription drug or hemp. You know, if it's my body and I'm the, you know, sick individual, I should have the option for something that's going to help me and that I want to take.
Yeah,
you know, that isn't going to have, you know. And
I was worried when I first started this. I was a little concerned how it would be. You know, how I was like, okay, are people going to be okay with this? I'm the OxiClean guy. People know me for being, you know, I'm doing laundry, getting tough stains out. I'm speaking to a lot of moms, and I was like, how are people going to take the fact that? But when I looked in the mirror and thought, well, why am I doing this? I'm doing this to help my kid, and there's nothing more that I can. It's, you know, it's hard to argue that one. I'm like, I'm not going to break any laws, but I want to help my kid, and if I have to push it a little bit, I will. I don't think I pushed it that hard, but I'm really happy that the great story is my daughter's doing great, and we have a product that right now we get just 5-star review after 5-star review after 5-star review, so it's just great. So.
Well, let's go back. You were born in Devon. What did you want to do when you grew up?
Oh my God, that's a good question. I think all I knew at a young age was that I wanted to be successful and I wanted to work for myself, and that was what I wanted to do. And I lived by the beach in the UK, and I started surfing at a very young age when nobody surfed in Europe. I was the second generation, and there was a surf shop in my village, and they would have these posters of California, and I used to sit with my fish and chips and after and I used to stare. This was before, you know, there's no internet, and I fantasized about, you know, one day surfing in Hawaii and going to California and going, you know, I would look at these places in Malibu. I want to go there. I want to experience that. So at a young age, I think that was sort of like, at one point and we used to get a lot of American television. And I would, you know, I'd be like, oh, this American place looks amazing. So always kind of in the back of my mind was like, I wanted to go to California and as a young age and surf and see the world. I wanted to work for myself. I was fortunate enough. My parents gave me a good education, and I had a few jobs, didn't go to college. And I bought a house actually at a very young age. I saved up enough money to go to Australia, and I bought a house at a young age, and I went to Hawaii. I actually went to Hawaii when I was 19. And I saved up some money, and I lived on the North Shore of Hawaii, and I got my first taste of surfing and having kind of living that. Is
that where you first moved?
Well, I went there in 1988 to 89 when I was 19 years old, and I got back to England, and I was going to go to college, and I couldn't. I wasn't very academic. I couldn't, you know, I wasn't an academic person. And I ended up at a bit of a loose end. I wasn't, you know, I was going to go to college and I couldn't go. Then I couldn't get in because I'd taken a couple years off. And in England, it's quite common for a gap year. And I kind of dropped out of school. And I wasn't quite sure if A, I had the money to go to college, my parents weren't going to pay, and B, if it was the right fit for me. And I had a few odd jobs here. I was a bartender, usual stuff, you know, service, whatever. And I stumbled across I was at a flea market in the UK, and I met this guy who was a demonstrator, and he was selling a car wash called the Amazing Washmatic. And I was fascinated. I literally was fascinated by watching him sell this product. And I asked him if he would teach me how to do it, if he would employ me. And he said no. And I kept at him. I kept bugging him. And he finally said yes. And I learned his skill. And it was basically pitching. I didn't know it was pitching at the time. I was demonstrating, but I learned the art of pitching products, and I was good at it. I just was. It was quite a difficult thing to do because it required getting up and performing and putting on a show. And I was just good at it, and I loved it. And you know when you love something, easier to do. And it wasn't like going to work. I loved it, and people would literally throw money at me. So I was performing and people throwing money at me. I was like, okay, this is great.
I can keep doing this.
And I ended up traveling all over England, working for various people. And as I did that, I got to better and better venues. And I worked in London and did some of the more famous street markets. And it's a whole subculture. It's a whole subculture of that world that I was in. And my parents my mom was absolutely sideways about it. She did not want me to do it. And then I was living this sort of street carny life of just selling these products, and it was I had a bit of swagger because I would be performing every day, and people would watch, and it was a performance. Anyway, I turned my TV on one day, my first TV. I turned the television on one day in the early '90s, and I saw my first infomercial, and I thought to myself, right, I want to be on television. That's what I want to do. And I'd already had, and I was watching these infomercials of these guys with, setting cars on fire and doing all this crazy stuff. And I'd been to America on a surf trip, and I decided to sell everything and sold everything I had. I was 22. So it seems like a lifetime ago. Jumped on a plane and went back to LA. And I knew one person there, and I decided I was literally, I'm going to get on television. And people laughed at me. They're like, you and everybody else. I was like, no, I'm going to get on TV. And I traveled all around the United States, and I landed in St. Petersburg in Florida, where I am now. And I got asked to be on HSN, the shopping channel, in the early '90s, and that's when it all started. And so
did you go to them with the smart mop, or
I did? How did you know about the smart mop?
I looked it up. But yeah, you went to them with it?
No, what happened was in this country, I used to sell this product called the Amazing Washmatic, but the product that brought me to America was called the Super Shammy Mop. And it became known as the Smart Mop. And everyone laughs at it because, who sells mops? And my friends would make fun of me because I was a mop salesman, but we sold a lot of them. Anytime anyone made fun of me selling mops, I would say, well, we did $15,000 in sales yesterday. And that's the numbers we would do.
That's amazing.
And I was at the St. Pete Home Show, and I was doing my pitch, my patter, and a lady was watching me from across the aisleway, and she watched me one too many times, and I sort of confronted her because she wasn't buying, and I'd never liked it when people watch me and didn't buy. So I said, what are you, a spy or a buyer? You're going to move along. And I asked her to move along, and she gave me a business card and said, I'm from HSN, and I would like you to be on our network. And this was back. This was when the only people on HSN were celebrities. And I use the word celebrity loosely. It was Ivana Trump, Louise Mandrell, Dr. Sulu from Star Trek, Frankie Avalon, and Jackie Collins. They were the type of celebrity. Wow. And me, some 22-year-old kid from England selling mops. And Suzanne Summers and Vanna White and Connie Stevens. These were all the celebrities that I used to meet. And it was a magical time, and I went on, and it was pre-internet, and I did my pitch, and it blew the doors off. And in that period of time, I met Billy Mays. And when I met Billy, that's when things really blew up, because Billy was incredible. And so I kind of met my American brother in Billy, who did exactly what I did, but he was even better at it than me, and he was bigger, and he was larger than life. So, and then Billy and I got together, and it just.
Well, if you say he was bigger than you, what do you think you learned from Billy?
Well, Billy and I were actually, we were competitors before we were friends, and he didn't, he used to call me the Butcher of Bayonne, and he used to accuse me of butchering every line that he had, and I was the English, I was no good, but. I used to sell this smart mop, and he would do this little chopper, and we would go toe to toe at the home shows, and we were competitive, and we showed up at HSN at roughly the same time. I actually got there before him, and he showed up, but he showed up with OxiClean, and I had the run of HSN to myself for about 6 months, and I never told Billy, I never told anybody where I was. I literally evaporated from the carny scene and went to HSN. And Billy showed up, and I was just, oh my God. And they liked me at HSN because I was this young kid from England, and I had a really strong accent. And I was the only one there. It was like I found a secret surf spot, and then Billy shows up, and I knew that Billy was a powerhouse because I'd seen him work at the home shows and the fairs, and I knew that when he, I knew this was going to happen. I said, when he gets in front of that camera, he is going to blow up. And he did. He was at the right time, at the right place, with the right product, with the right pitch, at the right price. And Billy was at HSN with OxiClean, and there was no stopping him. I mean, I've never seen, it's like, I guess, when you're a tennis player or something and you have a formidable opponent, and even when you get your ass kicked, you love the game.
Right. You keep coming back to get kicked again.
Borg and McEnroe, right? Like, when Borg retired, McEnroe went into a depression, because he didn't have his. So Billy was like that to me. And I'm like, he was just great. And we kind of left HSN in the late 90s at about the same time to break into mainstream television, which is where you would have seen Billy for the first time, really, on mainstream TV. And I started a production company because I wanted to kind of produce my own commercials for more reasons than one. And the owners of OxiClean, they had the foresight to put me and him together and said, look, you guys are both on TV. Sully, you're making commercials. Why don't you make a commercial with Billy in it? And I was like, no way. He will never, ever he's never going to take direction from me. And they said, no, he will, and they spoke to him, and Billy and this goes back to what a great human being. Billy checked his ego, and he showed up in his Rolls Royce in 1999, almost 20 years ago. We shot the first OxiClean commercial together. And it was one of the best days of shooting I ever had. If you could ask me, what are your favorite days of shooting? I'd say that commercial with Billy was, because I knew when I was shooting it, I'm like, this is going to be great. Like, I was just working with him, and I'm like, this is going to be,
and that's 20 years ago, you said?
Yeah, the first OxiClean commercial that Billy made came out in 1999. And
you're still working with them today?
Well, yeah. What happened is we had such good chemistry, Billy and I. We worked together for 10 years, and I ended up stepping away from the camera because I would be behind the camera because I had the guy, right? It was like I didn't need to be on camera. I got Billy's my guy. So, we just worked together. It was one of the best friendships you could possibly wish for, and great professional relationship, both on and off camera. And we ended up getting a TV show together called Pitchman. And Billy was a sweetheart of a guy. He was really good at what he did. I mean, I thought I was good at selling. Billy was just, I mean, my face would hurt from laughing at the stuff he would come out with. He was really, really good. So I just, it's been, all the way from that flea market back in Devon to all of a sudden we're in America with a brand like OxiClean. It's been a heck of a journey, and then to where we are now with Montkush, doing, still using TV, still telling the story. Montkush is a very, very different product, to it's medicinal. Obviously it's wellness based. So I'm having to adapt and learn how to, change myself, if you will, and adapt to this new environment. And everything's different now because it's digital, right? And we're talking like this.
Yeah.
And,
you have to change the conversation too. Medicinal is completely different than something
100%. 100%. Yeah.
A home product, of course.
Yeah, and I think people are maybe scratching their head a little bit, going, "Wait a minute, isn't that why is he doing this?" It's a big departure, but it's for the right reason, and
absolutely. What are the most important qualities, or I guess qualities someone must have to be a successful pitchman?
I think it's changed a little bit. I think that the place of the pitchman in today's world is not where it was 10 years ago. I watch a lot of different media, and if you look at cable TV right now, you don't see the pitchman on, the only guy you do see a lot right now is My Pillow guy.
Oh God, yeah.
You see Mike out there doing his thing, and he's doing well with it, and I wish him all the luck. I think that the first thing, you obviously have to have the confidence to get in front of a camera and turn it on. And I think you have to turn it on at the right time. If you're on all the time, And Billy was not on. He was the best. Billy would turn it on when he had to. He could, when he would put his blue shirt on and he would get his hair ready, and he was a very soft-spoken person. But when you turned it on, you better fasten your seatbelt. And he was very, very well rehearsed. Some people would argue that Billy was a little, abrasive or angry or would shout, but that was his cadence. And I think you have to find, I've had the fortunate maybe a bit having a British accent, so I played to the British accent. And you look at other pitch people, they all have a little, Ron Popeil had a way of doing it, but being very, very comfortable with your product. That was one of the things that I always felt was, I really have to love what I'm selling, and it comes across. And I've picked a couple of duds over the years that I would cringe if I went back and I'm like, why did I do that? Like every actor's made a couple of bad movies, right? I picked a couple of bad products, and so did Billy. But the ones that stand out is, the product's got to be great. It does. You can't pitch a crappy product. You can, but why would you? And it's the pitch is something that it actually evolves. You can't just write a pitch down. Most of the great pitches, if you will, I didn't create them, or Billy didn't create them. They came. They were an evolution of experience of working one-on-one with customers, which is what I miss a little bit, is the one-on-one with. I used to love going to state fairs and home shows, and actually we go on the road with Montkush, and I love sitting down with those customers one-on-one. And I call it selling, just having a conversation. And when you're having that interaction with someone, you start to develop your pitch. And I think a good pitch is entertaining. It's educational. It's got a great hook, bat to it. We call it a bat sometimes, where the offer is absolutely fantastic. You can make people smile. It's got a couple of really good demonstrations. It's like a great song. There's a cadence to it. But NPR did a piece on it, and they kind of broke it down a little bit. They said it's literally like writing a great song. You got a chorus. OxiClean gets the tough stains out. White and whites and brighter brights. You have all these lines, and you don't magically write them. You're waking up one day, you're like, all right, that's good, that works, and it gets a smile. And I always knew when I had a good pitch, because A, you'd sell, but B, you could see the transformation of the person you were talking to willingly shift from being defensive to actually going, you know what, I want to buy this. And I just bought a car, and a used car, not a new car, not a fancy one, for my daughter to go back and forth to school. And I went to a lot of dealerships, and when you're getting pitched to and sold to, pitching is like, you don't feel uncomfortable. It's like, I'm really fired up about this. I'm really excited about it. And I'm excited about it. And I want you to be as excited as I am about it. And in that, it's like I'm sharing my enthusiasm. So there's a lot to it. I could talk for hours about it.
No, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Really. And really, Sully, thank you for sharing your daughter's story with us.
Thanks for having me.
I wish you the best of luck. Definitely send me that, and I will put it up on social media. I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to say, just use the code Locher. All right. Okay.
Use that code. It will be on. I'm going to go back and have it put up right now. I'm going to walk back there and have it put on the site, so it'll be live. It'll be live by the end of day today, East Coast time. All right.
Great. Thanks so much. You have a great weekend, and I wish your daughter continued great health.
Thank you very much. Go to montkush.com if you want to check out our CBD. That's montkush.com. It's solventless. It's Montkush. We'll have a great deal. Use code LOCHER. And remember, OxiClean gets the tough stains out.
Thanks, Sully. Have a great weekend, my friend. That was awesome. Thank you to Anthony Sully Sullivan for joining us today. Join me next Thursday when Soap Opera Festival's creator Joyce Becker joins me live. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you have yet to do so. Turn on the notifications for reminders of all upcoming shows so you never miss one. I hope you all have a great weekend. Let's pray for Ukraine, and let's all stay safe, everybody. Thanks so much.